Hello and welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week edition of the program, we'll be focusing on the Energy and Labour Summit organized by the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria. We also have news stories for you. We will be right back.
Discussion.
It's the second edition of the Energy and Labour Summit, organized by the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASAN. At the event, industry players discussed the future of the oil and gas sector and how workers' welfare can be enhanced.
The labour movement have been steadfast on the positions of what they think could be done before government could go into deregulation. And a lot of these has been stated in the past. Things to put in place. For the short term, the medium term, and for the long term. On what could be done in order to alleviate the sufferings that Nigerians are passing through today. And you could see labor leaders, both in the past and in the now, are all in sync on what could be done.
My brother.
At the panel session, experts stressed the need for workers in the sector to upskill and reskill, while stakeholders must invest in technology.
Let's focus on tailor-made education that will help us protect our pipelines. We don't have to ask any part of the world to help us with pipeline surveillance. Our people in Lagos should be able to give us technology that will protect our pipelines. And to do that, it will not happen spontaneously. Government will have to be intentional by funding efforts, research, tailored to some outcome.
There is no substitute to fuel, even globally. So crude oil will still remain relevant. It will continue to be relevant. But the problem is that to attract, funding, global funding, what we call foreign direct investment, is slow because of climate change and because of the transition. So to handle that, the country must develop in-house capacity to address funding deficits.
The regulation has come to stay. Technologies will be adopted. And so we have to make the steps to begin to train, our workforce to take over roles, because when technology comes in, new roles are created. And so we need to begin to train our workforce to take those new roles that we're transiting in.
So I think that we should be able to take out of this session, basically government, to see how much we have done to incentivize investments into the midstream and downstream space.
During the event, different topics were discussed. According to industry experts, the theme of discourse will enable a sustainability energy future in Nigeria.
Energy are really at the core of every human measure of development. Living standards, life expectancy, education, and income. Yet for many billions of people, that's still far out of reach. And the challenge only grows as the world's population grows. Consider for a moment that between today and 2050, our global family expands at the rate of 1 million souls every week. 1 million people every week. So no matter how we choose to define the term energy security, at its heart is the essential truth that energy use is tied with improved living standards.
Job outsourcing had key drivers. Until we understand the key drivers behind, let me use the term now, casualization, we are likely going to be chasing ourselves with canes and strides till the world will run in circles. For instance, between 1970 and 1983-84, where people had full-time employment in oil and gas industry.
A panel discussion themed Fueling Sustainable Energy Innovation, Women Leading the Charge was held during the 3-day conference held in Abuja.
Let's give it, like in the next decade, the underrepresentation will be a matter of choice in the energy industry. Women had always had slots in the teaching, the nursing, the feminine, what we consider the feminine industry. But because of the tediousness of the energy industry.
So when you talk about the sustainability of energy, we need to look at the remarkable contributions that women are making in this sector. A lot of progress has been made. We are talking about gender diversity in the workplace. And it is proven that for companies where you have more women in leadership position, they are able to have a better outcomes for that organization, both in terms of revenue and both in terms of the sustainability of that sector. So yes, while we are growing and we are making that impact, 30%, McKinsey has done the study and says that for women, companies where you have more women at leadership positions, you have 30% better outcomes for those companies than traditionally male-dominated organizations.
Some members of the union received Award of Excellence as workers continue to prepare for a just transition. It was agreed that there should be enhanced transparency in the implementation of policies in the oil and gas sector.
Basically, the objective of this program, right from the concept, is to get industry captains and players, stakeholders to come together and review the performance of the oil and gas industry, and then come up with a framework, come up with a communique of actions that should be taken by the tripartite relationship, government, employers, and employees, such that the oil and gas industry in Nigeria will continue to thrive. So this year's theme, like we are looking at the regulation of the downstream and then gas utilization as a way of sustainable energy for Nigeria in the future. Yes, ILO has already started a process of energy transition. And if Nigeria does not do anything, we'll be left behind. So the communique from this program, or the activities from this program since we started, has x-rayed what energy transition means, what the union can do to align Nigeria properly from our own perspective, such that Nigeria is not left behind.
In the gas utilization space, what are we doing? What should we do? What can we do differently? And we know that each time we go through this summit, great things happen because we come up with ideas and they are followed up, and to a very great degree, things change. Is the change where we want to be? No, but it's a journey. We cannot achieve it in one day. Step by step, we'll definitely go there. But what is also special about this year's zone is that there's a section for women, and they'll be looking at fueling the energy transition journey, women taking charge. So why do we want women to take charge? Because it's been proven research-wise that organizations that have women at the decision-making body of their companies, they do better. And you also know that even from managing the home, making sure that everything is good, combining your career and home management, women still excel.
And they want to depend solely on import because that is where they feel they will make more profit. They are businessmen. So that's why I said, look, yes, the refineries have been neglected over the years because of the intent to sell it to their cronies, and we've resisted it. It's okay, why don't you use the NLNG model where you can bring in those private people and the government will also be there. So we'll be able to put an eye on our own interest. So 51-49%, give the private people the 51% controlling shares, but we'll be there too to put an eye on what they want to do, the 49%. And then these things will run well. So they bring the ideas and everything. And that's why fix it first. When you fix it, when you fix the refineries, you can now bring this model in. So that's been our attitude over the years.
On the Profile Interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the National President of Pengasan, who also doubles as the President of Trade Union Congress. He brings us up to speed on some of the challenges workers are faced with in the oil and gas sector, while also admonishing the federal government on some of the steps to be taken to ensure that the economy is improved. It's good to have you on the program.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sharon.
It's been a long time we spoke.
Yeah, that's true, absolutely.
Good to finally
Lots
have
of
you.
Events.
Yes, it's been a busy season for the labor sector because of the several challenges that the country is faced with.
That's correct.
But let's start with why we're here. It's the second edition of the Energy Labour Summit.
Yes, correct.
Can you bring us up to speed on what the feedback has been and what should the industry expect from this conference?
Yes, if you remember that the maiden edition of the Pengasan Energy and Labour Summit actually started last year. October last year, we were also here for the maiden edition. And if you remember very well, that was focused much more on energy transition. It was focused principally on that, as well as oil theft. And after that, the communique that came out from the conference was sent to government. And I think one or two of the recommendations have since been implemented. So this year as well, Pengasan felt that we should move it a notch higher. So that was why we all came together again for the Energy and Labour Summit this year. And the theme for this year, it has to do with deregulation. I mean, you can't discuss anything in Nigeria today outside the deregulation of the downstream oil sector. That is majorly what is affecting the Nigerian populace today. So we are talking about deregulation of the downstream sector of the Nigerian economy. We are also talking about the utilization of gas because they are a bit interwoven. How can we best develop our downstream and our midstream? And then how do we have a sustainable energy future? So these are all the themes that are tied together for this year's event. From the feedback we've received, it's been quite overwhelming. We have players from government. We had the Minister of Labour, we had the representative of the Senate President, we had the representative of the SGF, of the Federation, then we have as well the players in the industry, the stakeholders, the GCO, NNPC, the NMDPROA, Authority Chief Executive, and the Commission Chief Executive represented. So we've been engaging. So at the end of the conference, we strongly know and we believe that the action point that we are going to pass to government, we'll press them to get them implemented. We'll use our instruments to also get them to implement the critical points. So as at today, we are still harnessing all the thoughts.
Before we move on to the sub-theme of discussion for this summit, I would like to take you up on the work that Pengasan had sometime about a year ago against the trend of oil theft. The Nigerian Senate seems to be concerned recently about this. Can you clarify what the situation of things are as the president of Pengasan? Would you say that oil theft has not been reduced? Would you say that that trend still persists?
Yes, Sharon, if you remember last year when we mounted the advocacy that Pengasan, drew the attention of the entire world to what is happening in the oil and gas sector, that we had a protest across the major cities in Nigeria, in the streets of Kaduna, in the streets of Port Harcourt, in Warri, in Lagos, in Abuja, where we drew the attention of government to what is happening in that area. As at that time, as of September last year, we were producing barely around 700,000 barrels of crude per day. But after our advocacy, we now went on having some series of meetings and proposing far-reaching solutions on what we think government could do in order to be able to manage the issues regarding oil theft. And you could recall that sometime this year, we've hit between 1.3 and 1.4 million barrels. That means taking stock from when we did that protest, when we mounted that advocacy till today, we've had about 80 to 90% increment in production. Yeah, so we could arrogate part of the success to the advocacy we mounted and to the pressure we applied to the system. In fact, at the time, we even threatened that we want to withdraw our members from the field operations because you can't keep producing crude and you have some people out there who are stealing this crude. So is it yet Uhuru? The answer is no. Have we solved, has the problem in the sector been solved holistically, the answer clearly is a no. But have we moved significantly from where we were as at last year till date? The answer obviously is yes. A lot of our fields are we also produce associated gas. So that means you have both oil and gas in the same reservoir. So when you produce oil, gas also comes out. Even when your intention is to produce gas. So what do happen is that a lot of these companies that produce from associated wells that are operating in the swamp and the land location, what they do majorly is that they would produce the oil and gas. They will take the gas into the gas processing facilities, but the oil at the end of once it's produced, what they do, they will inject it into the well.
So are you saying now that there are new strategies to fight that are in place to fight oil theft? And would you say that we have enough technology, or there are new technology in place to checkmate this?
No, we can't be complacent to say we have all the technology to checkmate and fight oil theft. No, it's a work in progress. We have since commended some of the work that was done by NUIMS, former NAPIMS, a subsidiary of NNPC, regarding monitoring. But it could also be deepened. It could be deepened much more, so that we get to the era of like the Saudi Aramco, where you have facilities to monitor all your pipelines. Today, we could apply drone technology. Today, we could also apply nanotechnology, for example, the molecular structure, to be able to know, detect the issues regarding oil theft. When a pipeline is compromised, you could know in a millisecond that a pipeline is compromised. So there are a lot of technology that is abound today. I mean, we are in the era of artificial intelligence. So there are a lot of technology that we could apply to that particular sector to ensure that the issue of oil theft become a thing of the past. Significant progress has been made, but until we have zero oil theft in Nigeria, we will not rest. So all stakeholders must close their ranks. So it shouldn't just be soundbite. Senate wants to probe. We have been hearing that over and over again. But there should be massive collaboration between the three arms of government, so that finally we can put this issue behind us and gain from because today crude oil price is moving on a daily basis. It hit about about $95 per barrel in the last few weeks. So, but it since retracted. But as a country, we have not benefited from the surge in the price of crude, because the volume of production has drastically reduced.
Thinking about the new world of work, we know that there's cleaner energy, there's a just transition, and there's been several recommendations. As the president of Pengasan, what would be your message to your members in terms of upskilling, reskilling, and also probably keying into the future of work in the oil and gas sector?
Yes, last year, the theme of last year was focused principally on what you have raised now. And last year, we had industry experts that had conversations with us. So tying that to what is happening this year, OPEC has now even said that by 2050, the demand for crude oil will still be almost the same thing that it is today. And when you listen to the presentations, you could see that oil and gas is still with us. Yes, we understand the issues bordering on climate change. We have asked, and also issues on just transition. I mean, we're in ILO, where we talked about just transition. Today, it is difficult for you to attract finance to the oil and gas, because a lot of these companies, they are deploying their finances into renewables, into cleaner energy. So even when in Africa we are pushing for just transition, we are not cut off from the global energy mix. We are not cut off from what is happening globally. So that means in all our conversation, we must also think, if finance is not coming in, if most of the IOCs are divesting and they are allowing the indigenous oil and gas company to take charge of your local production, can the indigenous oil and gas company be able to attract the same level of investment that these IOCs are attracting? The answer clearly is a no. So if that happens, what is to happen to our members? So that is why we have communicated to our members. We are putting a lot of training skills for some level of flexibility, so that when you are having challenges in these areas, I mean, if you have multi-skills, if you can multitask, it is much more better and it is safer for an individual. So as an organization, as Pengasan, we have inculcated this since last year and we will deepen it further.
Casualization of workers seems to be the order of the day, not just in the oil and gas sector, but in almost every sector. You wear two caps as the president of TUC and also president of Pengasan. It's also one of the discussion laid out for the conference. What will be your take on what can be done to ensure that we have decent work?
Yeah, the greatest problem we have in Nigeria is the failure of government institutions. So when government institution fails, everybody will now labor. You know, if today, if you have immigration, they are doing their job effectively. If today you have the Interior Ministry that are granting all manner of waivers and licenses, if you have, let's say, Ministry of Labor, who ought to put their feet on the ground and say, no, you cannot enslave Nigerian workers in Nigeria. If these institutions were strong, if they were up and doing, then there will be less for the trade unions to do. But today, we fill in that gap and do the functions of government. If you go to a country like Angola, you don't have such challenge because they have robust legislation that helps in curbing issues of contract staffing. And that is what we have been advocating for, that as a country, we must come together to be able to define what is decent work. So as a labor center, TUC, what we have been trying to do, we have been trying to conscientize most of our affiliates. We have been trying to push to let them understand the evils of casualization. And one way or the other, we also have to get the people unionized. That's the easiest way to fight it. We have done that in Pengasan. So in Pengasan, what we've done is that some of these people that they call casual staff, in quote, what we do is that we have unionized them. Then once we unionize them, it's now easy to fight for them and push for a sustaining collective bargaining agreement.
Let's move on to fuel subsidy removal. It's still a very big issue because the effects is still on us. It's assumed that if the refinery works, probably the pricing might be better. How true is this? And what would be your submission? What is practicable?
Yes, if the refinery work, actually, the pricing will be better. But the greatest problem that we have today is the exchange rate. That is the greatest elephant in the room. Because even if refinery works, so tomorrow, if the official value of Naira goes to 900, 1,000, we will pay more. So that is the greatest problem that we are having. It is very good for the refinery to be fixed. In fact, if you see the communique that we signed with government, the MOU, part of the takeaways was that we are going to visit the refineries. Let's see for ourselves. Yeah, we've been told stories. Yeah, because I'm from that sector, I may have additional knowledge because I have members in that refinery. I know what is happening. But when we are going to the auspices of TUC, in the NAC of TUC, we have people from different sectors. So it is not me telling them, but it is us going there to see what the state of the work is. So if they tell you that the refinery will come to stream by December, and we go in there and we discover that what they have done is 40%, then we know that it is not true. But by the time we go there and we discover that, okay, the work done so far is about 80, 90%, then we could now address Nigerians, telling them that we are quite sure that if not December, maybe January, the old Port Harcourt refinery will come on stream. Then we'll also evaluate the new Port Harcourt refinery. But above all these, what we have advocated as Pengasan is that once you fix this refinery, you should institute the NLNG model, that it is that model that will work. So government should divest minimum 51% of its shares. You bring core investors, not to sell the shares to your cronies, your political associates, or your friends.
So talking about the exchange rates, as the president of Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, we know that we've hit 1,000 plus to the dollars right now. And the organized private sector are of the view that factories might actually have to shut down. Generally, what do you think needs to be done? And also, how can we avoid job loss? Because the way we are going, job loss seems not to be inevitable.
Yes, thank you so much, Sharon. I'm not a financial expert, in quotes, but I own an MBA from Lagos Business School, so I understand business. So, one of my teachers of economics in Lagos Business School, Professor Doyin Salami, there was a theory he propounded, and which I think I have also tested with some economists and financial experts, and they all attest to the fact that that theory would have worked. And what was it? So as when the dollar was about, the naira was 450 naira to a dollar, what we could have done was to say, okay, every year, let us devalue our currency based on the inflation rate of the dollar. We have had inflation rate average of, let's say, 4-5%. So every year, you devalue your currency by about 4 or 5%. So that in 10 years, you will devalue by about 50%. Because today, naira is undervalued, as attested to by the Bank of America, as attested to by JP Morgan. Floating the naira and allowing it to slide 100% was bad. But they have started doing putting some things in place to ensure that it doesn't get above 800. But I don't think we even have business to have gotten to where we are today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We can't exhaust all the questions. There will definitely be other times to discuss other issues.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.